Ladies, youth empowerment, save for the future. Now, the co-host for this session is University Tenaga Nasional and the Institute of Energy Policy and Research, or IEPRe for short. To chair this session, we are pleased to have Dr. Hezri Adnan, Adjunct Professor, Eleanor Elisa Bart, President of the Economics, Energy, Environmental and Sustainable Club at UNITEN, Professor Madya Dr. Muhammad Murshid Arshad, UPM Institute for Youth Research Malaysia, Ministry of Youth and Sports, Professor IR Dr. Isham Zainal Abidin, the Dean for the College of Engineering, UNITEN, and lastly, Noor Shahida Razali, Research Analyst, Malaysian Industry Government Group for High Technology MITE. So welcome everyone, that's quite a lot of you on stage. Another round of applause, welcome them on stage. Thank you very much for being here. And I'll now hand over to Dr. Hezri.
Thank you very much, Karen, for that introduction. That simplifies my job. I don't have to introduce everyone, but I still do have to introduce everyone later. Greetings of peace, greetings of solidarity. It's a pleasure being here on stage with the future leaders, leaders of tomorrow in the field of energy, particularly renewable energy. And I would like to begin by thanking the organizers for inviting the Malaysian Institute of Economic Research to be part of this conversation this morning. And I also like to now bid a warm welcome to all our panelists. Dr. Murshid from UPM, and also he has one foot also in the Institute for Youth Research, Ministry of Youth and Sports. We have Puan Shahida from MITE. We have on my left is Mustaqim, and he will be sharing some interesting insights on what the Youth for Climate, Youth Delegation for Climate Change is doing. And on my right is Elisa from UNITEN, and she's the president of the Energy, Economic, Sustainability and Environment Club there in UNITEN. And last but not least is Professor Isham, who's the Dean of Engineering at the UNITEN, University Tenaga Nasional Malaysia. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for choosing us in this room this morning to be with us this morning to deliberate on a very important topic of youth empowerment in the energy transition. As we all know, the bulk of the population in the world now is made of youth, and a bulk majority of this group is really active in the energy domain, particularly renewable energy domain or clean energy domain. We have heard a lot about energy transition since yesterday. I would just like to add to the conversation by saying that this is not the first energy transition globally. In fact, this is the fourth energy transition that we are going through. Just to preface this conversation, it took the world 50 years to provide 40% of coal. That's the first big global energy transition. And you can count this happening from at the beginning of the Industrial Revolution. And then it took another 50 years to provide 30% of crude oil from 1915. So 50 years to provide 30% of crude oil. And then we moved to gas. It took the world 50 years again to provide only 20% of gas from 1930. And here we are today, we're talking about the next energy transition with clean energy, with renewable energy as the next sort of fuel. And so far, if you count the beginning from 2015, we've only managed to supply 5%. So it takes a long time to come up with the whole, structure for new energy. And this is why I think we need to act together. We need a collective action because we need to accelerate the transition to this energy transition that we gathered here for today. And of course, it's very important in this make is the question of how do we position our youth and where are they positioning themselves now? And this is very important because if you go back to the whole topic of sustainable development, if you go back to the Brundtland Report of 1987, the emphasis was on meeting the needs of current generation without compromising the needs of the future generation. And I feel very young this morning actually because I'm surrounded by young leaders, Elisa next to me and also Ikram. Not to say that Prof. Isham and Shahida and Dr. Murshid are not young. I guess we are young at heart. And So this conversation this morning, we'll be looking at the role, the opportunities, and the challenges in empowering youth towards this energy transition that is very important. Without further ado, I would like to start the first round, which will consist of a series of short presentations or sharing by all 5 panelists. And then after that, we'll go into a round of conversation among the panelists, and then hopefully we'll have enough time to collect some questions from the floor or points of clarification. Without further ado, I would like to invite IEPRe Mustaqim Muhammad, from the Youth Delegation for Climate Change. You have about 10 minutes, IEPRe. You can go there, you can sit from here, both are fine.
Is my voice audible? Yeah. All right. I think it's not moving. All right. Okay, hi ladies and gentlemen. So I guess my voice is audible. So I'm IEPRe Mustaqim, and I'll be representing the Malaysian Youth Delegation for Climate Change in our presentation on the topic of today, which is, if you see in the previous slide, it's cultivating youth empowerment in the energy transition. Ladies and gentlemen, humankind is at its peak of its prowess. We have conquered the earth. Globalization has allowed us to cross the boundaries between East and West. Technological innovations has allowed us to do things that we haven't done before, and our need and our search for knowledge has allowed us to gather information never before heard in human history. But despite all our modern innovations and our aspirations that we have searched upon, there are still a bleak and gloom perspective on the future, especially when we talk about youth and climate change. Ladies and gentlemen, yeah, okay. Nice. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, with all that we have achieved, instead of feeling optimistic, a growing cloud of pessimism and gloom shrouds on our future. Growing wealth inequality, financial insecurity, and the critical threat of climate change, which can further aggravate existing troubles and create new ones, spark anxiety and fear. As those threats become intensified with time, societal inaction would prove fatal, especially towards the youth who will be facing the lion's share of any detrimental impacts that climate change would bring. So when we look at the next slide, instead of envisioning a future utopia, if we don't do anything progressive in our current age, we will be progressing towards a future dystopia because of climate change. Therefore, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to bring the discussion that for the sake of a just and equitable future for our youth, it is imperative that as a society, we take climate action, dubbed as the greatest challenge of the 21st century by the World Health Organization, seriously. The statistics show that the biggest cause of climate change and the biggest cause of carbon emission can be traced towards the energy sector. Therefore, if we are serious in tackling the problem of climate change, we must sanction a progressive energy transition through the phasing out of and shifting from carbon-intensive fossil fuel-based systems of energy productions and consumptions like oil, coal, to climate-friendly renewable energy resources such as solar and wind, which can play a big role in mitigating climate change. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll skip the previous slide because I think it's stuck. But these pictures, they paint a very clear picture. When we talk about climate change, while it's the scientists and academicians who taught us and who exposed us on the dangers of climate change and the dangers of not taking action and the possible cause that can happen, when we talk about climate change, it is the faces of youth who are being envisioned in our imagination in mind. So take a look at the top right of this slide. you can see that's Greta Thunberg. This is actually one of her first pictures when she initiated the school strike for climate movement in her home country. So that is in 2018. When we talk about climate change in 2018, there wasn't much traction. So after Greta started this movement, when she was only 15 years old, only then climate action started taking traction in the global society and had world renown because of her strong voice for the advocacy of climate change. So it's the same situation as well here in Malaysia. So the Malaysian Youth Delegation and several other climate change-centric or youth-centric organizations have long been advocating for serious actions on climate change. So on the top left picture, you can see this is a meeting that we had between all the university students, all participants or representatives from each university in Malaysia for a meetup with the Deputy Minister of the Ministry of Environment and Water, YB Datuk Mansur Osman. Below that, we have a climate strike, a peaceful climate strike to raise awareness and action on climate change. This was before the COVID period in 2019. And also, we had participate in a lot of conversation and dialogues with participants ranging from all across the world. For example, our MYD member previously had participated in a UN climate change conference in China. So what we can say is the youth are very serious in taking climate change as a matter. So therefore, it is not weird that we see climate change being a problem that is focused and incentivized upon by the youth. Oh. Ladies and gentlemen, I think I won't use my slides. So let's look at let's continue with the presentation. So we have established, we have established that climate change is a serious matter, and it affects our youth. It aggravates the effects to our youth much more severe than those with different generations. Because why? Because climate change tends to be more critical as time goes by. And as we don't take action as time goes on, it will be more dangerous. That's why we can establish, number one, that the youth would be unfairly and unequitably affected by the problem of climate change and the effects that brings. Secondly, because the youth population is one of the biggest population in the world, they are also unequitably affected because of their volume of population. Therefore, when we talk about a problem like climate change, it does not only begets climate action, but it demands for youth action to be participants in the climate change process. Therefore, when we look at the youth, we associate them with qualities such as ingenuity, the drive, and the willingness to see the problem as it is and to speak truth to power. And because of it, these traits would be ideal for us to import in our pursuits of a better climate, of a better world, and it's important in mankind's fight against climate change. Thus, in order to realize the maximum potential of youth power in the battle against climate change, youth empowerment in the energy transition needs to be a prioritized agenda. So, ladies and gentlemen, number one, for this to happen, it is of utmost importance that the energy transition must be a just one, i.e., it does not discriminate and it leaves a fair and inclusive way possible to everyone concerned, regardless of their age and identities, creating decent work opportunities and leaving no one behind. So this is the idea of a just energy transition. Number two, empowerment of youth can only happen through equitable access to resources, information, and opportunities. This can be the form of educating by developing opportunities for youth to participate in technical and vocational education training, or better known as TVET, in industries and sectors relevant in the energy transition. Furthermore, entrepreneurial skills are also important for us to encourage the establishment and further development of youth-led startups. We've noticed the impacts of startups and small companies in its original form, such as Google, Apple, and Microsoft had on this world in this day and age. Therefore, it's important for us to empower our youth to create a similar impact in the form of the energy transition in this world today, especially here in Malaysia, where entrepreneurial skills are important for the creation of jobs. Next, we can look at the next recommendation, which is empowering youth to the meaningful participation in policy and decision making. So here are pictures that the Malaysian Youth Delegation has participated in. So we've been to COP, the Conference of Parties, a climate change summit or negotiation that is organized every year in several different countries. We are an important stakeholder and represent the youth of Malaysia as a voice in international climate change negotiations. Furthermore, we've met with several ministers. For example, there's YB Dr. Zul, who's before this is the Mufti of Wilayah Persekutuan, to engage on matters of Islam and climate change because we know that the matters of faith intersect with the matters of climate change. We've represented the youth of the world in several climate change negotiations, such as in the bottom right picture. And at the left, this is also another picture of the Malaysian Youth Delegation at a COP event in 2018. So therefore, this shows that youth participation is important for us to intensify youth advocacy movements in the climate action scene. So not only should there be an implementation of a token youth quota at the meeting table, but their inputs should be heard and given legitimate consideration. This can only happen if solid communication and partnerships are built between governments and youth. Building bridges is pivotal in enhancing climate actions. So ladies and gentlemen, I'll end my presentation with a call to action to all of the audience in this room today. All in all, climate change is a threat that disrupts us all, regardless of our age and identifications. Therefore, while the topic today is about youth action in the energy transition, it is important for everyone to participate to solve an issue in this level. In an issue as big, it takes a whole of society approach. Therefore, I would like to call the audience today to not only look at the purpose and the role of youth in the climate change movement, but also to ask ourselves, what can we do in our own capacity and as a capacity as a society, what can we do to seek betterment for the climate change movement? So that's all from me, thank you.
Thank you very much, IEPRe Mustaqim, from the Malaysian Youth Delegation for Climate Change. He went overboard a couple of minutes, but I don't have the heart to stop you because you're injecting so much enthusiasm and energy into this morning session, and also the sense of urgency that this is a collective endeavor that we should all pursue together. And thank you very much for that sharing and giving us a snippet of what Malaysian Youth Delegation is doing. I'm sure you're doing a lot more than that. But I think what is most important is to understand that the youth are not just asking for a seat at the table. They are out there mobilizing. Like he pointed to this phenomenon of Greta Thunberg, emerging on the global stage and really having the goal to call a spade that this is a global action and it's very urgent. Thank you, Ikram, for that introduction. And now I would like to invite Elizabeth Aswin, the President of Economics, Energy, Environmental and Sustainable Club in UNITEN. Just to preface that, she is with the Faculty or College of Energy Economics at UNITEN, which is a new faculty established by UNITEN just a few years ago, and she's on the third batch. 2 batches have graduated, and this signifies a very important move in the energy transition itself, whereby a University Tenaga Nasional leading the way, providing the platform, providing the education for the next generation of experts, technicians, and leaders for the energy sector. Over to you, Elisa.
Thank you, Dr. Hazri, for the introduction. So I am very, very happy to be here today. Thank you to the organizers for choosing me, for entrusting me to be the youth representing future leaders of the energy industry. Thank you so much. I am so happy to be alongside really experienced and distinguished speakers alongside with me today. So without further ado, I'll just start with my speech. Please spare about 5 to 7 minutes, I promise. 5 to 7 minutes of your time for me to give this short and sweet simple presentation. All right, so first of all, I am obligated to share about my club. My club is 3ESC. 3ESC stands for Economics, Energy, Environmental and Sustainable Club. So that's 3ESC. So our club originated as a club under our faculty, College of Economics, Energy and Social Sciences. It originated as a small little club under our faculty because we had only 30 students in our faculty. But then today, the club is growing stronger, and it's because of the members and the friends that I have in the club. All right, so the focus area of our club is basically we want to create an avenue for student members, for youth, to collaborate and also execute activities within the academia, meaning the activities that we run are usually conducting, we're inviting speakers, holding webinars, and co-hosting forums and so on. The vision of our club is we pledge towards greener and cleaner Malaysia. Just like how IEPRe is advocating, that is also what we advocate for. Our mission, like personally as my mission for this club within my term is to basically start recruiting members outside of our faculty, because I believe that 3ESC should not just be limited to the people in our faculty. It should be open to students from College of Engineering, students from College of CSIT, and so on. So I guess one of the biggest milestones that we have in our club is when we co-hosted the Green Energy Forum in 2019 by TNB, which was conducted in UNITEN. This was way before PKP, but right now, I will introduce you to our activities. Oops. Uh-oh. All right, so the initiative that we have right now, our current initiative, is called STEMbox. What is STEMbox? Okay, STEMbox is basically a one-ton container repurposed into a learning hub equipped with computers and software, 3D design software called Tiffin BIM. It's basically a CAD BIM software that is innovated by a local company called Innovasia Sendirian Berhad. So the purpose of this program, as you can see over here, I've mapped it to ESG. The first one is basically to promote green construction and also sustainable development or sustainability via the STEMbox showcase. To map it to society, social, we basically want to provide the opportunity to underprivileged children who has no resources to pursue STEM-related subjects because they are unable to purchase computers or basically the 3D design software, but we want to give them a chance to experience all this and hopefully invoke the interest in them to pursue STEM subjects. And also, another purpose of this activity is to basically increase the country's human capital in STEM, by encouraging youth to basically pursue related subjects, because by invoking passion from young or by invoking their interest from young, that is the only way for us to encourage them or basically push them towards taking the subjects. Moving on. All right, so the next slide just basically shows how 3ESC comes in STEMbox. So 3ESC was approached actually to become the sole training partner for STEMbox to basically attend the weekly Sunday classes, to introduce sustainability modules, to teach these children. Instead of just focusing on STEM-related subjects, we want to focus on sustainable STEM. So the expected outcome, the most important expected outcome is to basically give continuous utilization of the STEMbox and execution of sustainable STEM programs. And our target audience are basically underprivileged children, orphanages, schools, and the extended community aged 13 to 17. Because to us, this is the vital years when they are still growing. This is the best time for us to invoke interest and to basically push them towards making decisions, towards making sustainable decisions. And for me, I am a person, my approach to basically invoking interest and basically to encourage passion in people is actually through community engagement. That is what interests me. Because when you teach students something, when you teach them sustainability, knowledge does not always translate into taking action. I think we've all discussed this just now, because having the knowledge that you're supposed to have in sustainability does not necessarily actually translate into taking action. So How do you invoke this interest or basically the need for youth to basically take action and actually pursue their passion in sustainability and climate action? The only way to do that is to engage with them, is community engagement. And I feel that is one of the drivers of youth empowerment, social connectedness. As you can see here in this diagram, this is actually something that I learned in class, is that social sustainability is the foundation for any other development. Economic sustainability, environmental sustainability. Without a solid society, without a society that is willing to take action, that is not equipped with basically knowledge for them to do it, then any other type of sustainability will not be achieved. That is my understanding of it. There are 5 approaches and you can choose your approach, and this is what I chose. So moving on, the other driver, like personally, one of the other drivers to youth empowerment is basically having youth representation and encouraging collaboration among youth. As we discussed just now, knowledge does not mean taking action, but you can't leave it that way. We can't leave it that way. We have to ask them to take action, because if youth are not taking action and if they are not present or basically in policy making or decision making, you're basically passing the baton to a generation that has no knowledge, that has no interest, that does not want to take action. So you have to start invoking the sense of responsibility, the sense of accountability, because only with sense of accountability, people would want to take action or basically make responsible decisions. Moving on, I'll be talking about the role of youth empowerment in energy transition. These are actually points that I found from the Bank Negara annual report. The Bank, as I think we can all agree that Bank Negara has taken proactive steps in basically invoking sustainability. They have their sustainability unit, which is really interesting. So the first thing is, the role of youth empowerment in energy transition is that the youth creates a diverse and agile pool of talent. One of the reasons that a lot of companies are hiring fresh graduates nowadays is because you want fresh ideas. And I guess that is something, that is an added value that youth can bring. Youths have fresh ideas, ideas that you've never heard before, ideas that you've maybe never thought of before. Maybe if you thought of before, you might not have a way to execute it, but youths are able to bring that in. And it's not because, it's not just because of experience, it's just the way it's just the way they were brought up. It's just what we read on the internet, it's what we're exposed to on the internet. We have access to resources, we have access to a pool of resources at young age. So I guess that is one of the reasons why youth have fresh ideas. So moving on, the role of youth empowerment is to basically create a structure, is basically a structured approach to build collaborative youth network. When you empower youth, that is the first step for you to actually create. It's to basically introduce them to the industry. It's to basically introduce them to the real deal, you know. Only when you are empowering them, they are able to feel as if they are valued in the industry, and that is when they will start making wise decisions. Sorry. Moving on, the last point is basically youth are critical thinkers, change agents, innovators, communicators, and leaders. As we can see, we've seen Ikram. He's a leader, he's a change maker, he wants to do something, and he makes it a point to do something. And that's exactly what youth are. Youth, we do not stop. When we want something, we go for it, no matter what it takes. During MCO, during PKP, you think we can't go out and basically advocate? We take it to the internet. There is always a way for youth to bring forward our ideas, to bring forward our agenda. And that is one thing about youth. And that's probably because we have a tad bit more energy than the generation now. So moving on to my last slide, I would just like to basically talk about the future of sustainability team clubs in campus setting. For example, my club, 3ESC. You can see here that I've benchmarked a bit, like I have a local benchmarking. If you are aware of the IEPRe student chapter, the IEPRe student chapter is basically in the Institution of Mechanical Engineers. They have student members that come among, that are basically among university students. So what do these university students do? they basically collaborate and create a club, and most of the time, the IEPRe clubs in universities are really, really big. For example, in UNITEN, the IEPRe club is really, really active. So for global benchmarking, we have the Sustainable Energy Agency of Singapore. They also introduced this concept of student members, and the student members do exactly the same. The student members collaborate among each other, they create clubs in their university, they discuss and they collaborate, and basically they bring forward their agenda and they execute activities. So I feel that is exactly what we need in Malaysia. That is exactly what we need. I'm hinting to the organizers. Maybe the organizers can introduce this. I am aware of SEDA, however, that focuses on high school students. I feel that that initiative should be taken forward to the university level, because when university clubs are endorsed by reputable organizations such as the organizer, that is when students would actually start making responsible decisions. That is when we have a sense of accountability to ensure that the club moves forward, and not just moves forward, but moves forward with basically a guarantee that the programs that we execute are beneficial to the students and also to the society. So I guess to end my speech today is that I really hope that students, or basically clubs in the university settings, would have more opportunities, and if the opportunities are not given to us, we are definitely going to make that opportunities for ourselves. So instead of watching that happen, why don't be a part of us, support us, and inshallah, the future of energy transition is definitely going to be good. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Elisa, for your sharing. You have shared with us the importance of a just transition and how you have somehow managed to amass the interest within UNITEN, and you also have this ambition to scale up, to get other faculties, students at other faculties, and also hopefully other universities will be part and parcel of this movement that you have in mind. And I forgot to mention earlier that our friend here, IEPRe Mustaqim, is actually from, he has just finished completed his course in law at the University Islam Antarabangsa, UIA. So if you're wondering where's this eloquence from, that's from the law training, I'm sure. And again, we've heard from our two future leaders, and I think now it's time to bring in slightly younger speakers to just share with us what are the kind of things or what kind of initiatives and program that's happening to respond to the call for action by our two future leaders. I would like to invite Professor Ham, is that okay with you, to share what's happening in UNITEN. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's a big challenge now because we've got two very good young leaders, very fiery, very passionate. And here we are still young. Yeah, we're still young. Young at heart, young at heart. Okay, so what I wanted to show here would be a general overview on my thinking on what youth is supposed to be, or how can we also play a role. It's not just about youth, it's about everybody. How do we play that role for our future, okay? Oh. All right, now just to set the narrative straight, we are talking about two main topics, which are energy transition and youth. I think everybody here is well versed about what's energy transition, so I'll skip that. The most important part is the definition of youth. In this case, upon my quick search from Mr. Google, it says that youth are people who are aged between 15 and 30. Now, it's a very big group, and I'm sure among us, we also have people who are in the age group of 15 and 30. Okay? Obviously, for us, inside, we're still 30. Outside, it's PNC. Right, so the fact that I mentioned the term between 15 and 30 means that it covers a big spectrum, okay? And in this case, the most important point is to show that youth are the key factor in ensuring sustainability of our future. Of course, we do have the technology, we have the policy, we have the government action and whatnot, but the most important thing at the end game will be the youth that we have now. They are the ones who are going to bring forward our agenda, and they are the ones who will be experiencing the future as how we want to shape it now. So I guess it's a very good topic that we have here, and it's about time that we start thinking about youth. Right. Now, since I'm from the education background, so I like to look at the overall picture of education. Now, going through the years, we have preschool, primary school, secondary school, and higher education. Without us noticing, in actual fact, we already have elements of environmental, renewable energy, alternative energy sources, clean energy that we have already inculcated since preschool without us knowing about it. And that is a good thing because we already have the basic element, and what we need is how do we enhance that further as such that our youth or our future generations actually embrace the concept of sustainability, energy transition, and also our environment. So as you can see there, there's a lot of elements being inculcated, but of course it has pros and cons, which we can debate later. Okay, I'm just putting in the setting so that we can have further discussion on this. Right. Okay. Now, in the university, because I'm from the university, we do have elements related to energy transition topics. I think this has been true for every university that we have, locally and abroad. It will cover a broad range of topics depending on the program that we have. Either it covers sustainability, environment, or energy, or maybe for certain programs which probably cover policies and regulations. Again, I'm trying to show that the elements are there. But I think the big question that we need to discuss here will be, what's next? What should we do to make it better, to make it real for our future generation? Okay. Right. Apart from classroom, I think you have already experienced or you have already listened to our future leaders here. We do have, or we actually cultivate a lot of extra co-curricular activities, and it's actually by design, and I'm sure other universities also have the same. Every classes or every subjects would have their technical visits, they probably have technical programs outside, they probably have competitions between student clubs and societies, and especially now the trend from KPT is to actually inculcate more out-of-class experiences. For example, we have the SULAM program. SULAM means Service Learning Malaysia University for Society. It's one of the ongoing initiatives by KPT to actually get the students to be more involved with the community, to do projects with the community, and to give impact to the community. At UNITEN, we have two flagship programs. One is the ULEAD program and also the SHIELD program. Again, this is also an initiative by the university, in this case by UNITEN, because we feel that it's not just about technical knowledge, it's not just about knowing what you learn in class, it's about what you feel inside. If you think about it, you can teach a person everything, but if the person doesn't actually embrace it inside, doesn't actually really see it by himself or by herself that that is what we need to do, it will not work. And with the new generations that we have now, I would say the millennial Gen, I don't know, Gen AA or Z, I've lost count of that already. There are a few things that we need to actually strengthen. Okay, there are a few things to strengthen, and that is why this type of programs are very, very important. To sustain insight so that they are strong, and also active, and also innovative at the same time. And also, again, we need a lot more future leaders, which I'm very proud to see here now that we have. So, I'm sure every university will have this in place, and again, what's next? That is the big question. Now, going further, when we talk about research and projects, of course, we have mini projects, we have postgraduate programs and whatnot, and they are all designed with some of it with environmental, with sustainability to take into account, and also something where we want the students to experience or design something which relates more towards the community and also to the environment. So these are also in place. Again, what's next? And if you go into a bigger picture, go beyond postgraduate research, of course we have Practical research, for example, we talk about GF6 UNITEN Smart Grid project, whereby the UNITEN team actually looked into three main components. One would be looking at the policy making, one in terms of what's the gap, what's missing in there. We also talk about capacity building and also awareness. Just to share a bit, I believe this was actually discussed a bit by Dr. Raslan in the session yesterday. One of the key findings that we noticed is that it's not just about the technology. It's not about the knowledge, but it's about what is it for the layman? What is it for the community? If you talk about the pakcik and makcik kat kampung, what is it for them? We can talk about smart meters, PV panels and whatnot. By the end of the day, they ask me this one question. How do I reduce my electricity bill? Because for them, that's the most important thing. And this is where I think the youth can come in, because they're children. And if the parents see their children are doing this, and this, maybe slowly we'll try to shape the society from the bottom up. Okay? And of course, we are also in the process of establishing a National Energy Center at UNITEN. Again, we need to create that platform. So we are trying to actually establish this platform so that we can have research and industries together. I think one of the biggest challenges in research at university is the gap between industry and university. University think that this is the right way to do it. Industry thinks this is the right way to do it. We need somewhere where we can sit down and discuss about it and talk about it and find a win-win situation. So I guess all this goes back again to our basic, which is our youth. Remember, 15 to 30. It covers university students and also postgraduate researchers as well. Okay? So with that, I leave it for now. But if you need more info on what I have covered, well, there's a whole list of reference people. And of course, I need to acknowledge them for their contributions and ideas given to me to share with everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Ham, for that brief sharing on what's happening within UNITEN. It comes to preparing the students for the energy transition. There are about 1.8 billion people between the ages of 15 to 29 as we speak today. That's a big number. And yesterday from our CEO of Suruhanjaya Tenaga, we heard that we are currently at about 8.5 gigabyte of renewable. And by 2030, we are aiming for 13 gigawatt. And then by 2050, 18 gigawatt. And there's a lot of employment opportunities, skill sets that needs to be developed along the way. And yesterday I bumped into an old friend who's now heading the Pahang Skills Development Center. And they have got, interestingly enough, a diploma program. This is TVET, yeah, on renewable energy. And they're working, we started a conversation with SEDA on how, what are the contents that should be put in. So these are happening in drips and dabs, a bit fragmented. How do we bring it together? And perhaps this is one topic which we will carry on in the next round of conversation. Thanks, Professor Ham, for that introduction. I think now, because you've started by mentioning the Smart Grid program with MITE, I would like to now invite one Shahida Razali from MITE to share a bit on what's happening with that project and how do you, get the participation of youth along the way. Thank you. You have about 10 minutes.
Right. Testing. Thank you, Dr. Hezri, for the introduction. Apa khabar semua? Good. I can see younger faces back there. Thank you very much for joining our session. I'm Shahida from Malaysian Industry Government Group for High Technology. So I'll start a bit about MITE, where I believe some of you may not know us. So actually, MITE is an agency under the purview of Ministry of Science, Technology and Innovation. And we're responsible for the development of high-tech industry in Malaysia. So our main role is building and driving the partnership in technology through our private public sector platform. So apart from that, we also drive the R&D solution, and also we build the talent for tomorrow. So among the focus area, we have sustainable development technology, which at this moment, the energy is one of our focal area. Right, so I proceed with the current global energy, which is, we all know that the global energy faces an uncertain future, which is contributed by, I can say, from these factors. One of it is on the RE, renewable energy, which is expected to capture 30% of the global energy mix. However, based on our internal analytics, no energy outlook reports have projected to eliminate fossil fuels from the energy mix by 2050, where we want to move towards the net energy 2050. The second one is SDG, Sustainable Development Goal number 7, affordable and clean energy, where we want to ensure everyone can access to reliable, to secure and sustain modern energy. However, it is still 768 million people were living without electricity globally in 2021, as reported by ARENA. All right, so how actually might response to this global energy crisis? So sorry. One of testing. All right. Thank you. One of our initiative is through the JEFSIT Smart UNIDO Smart Grid project, where I believe Prof. Isham already mentioned it. So for this Smart Grid project, we have 4 main components: Smart Grid regulatory framework and policy input, capacity building, awareness, and also Smart Grid demonstration project, where this on-ground Smart Grid project had been currently being implemented in Malacca, where we integrate renewable energy technology. For instance, EV charging station, rooftop solar PV, large-scale solar thermal energy storage system into one integrated platform. So from this project, we expected to reduce around 40,000 tons CO2 equivalent per year. And in the context of annual energy saving, we expected to we expected 244,000 gigajoule direct annual energy savings. So for our on-ground project implementation, we currently in second phases. All right, in the youth empowerment context, from our Smart Grid project, we nurture our young talent through this human capital development. So we already conducted a series of Smart Grid training, where we conduct training on the Smart Grid technology related area, including solar thermal, solar PV, EV, data analytics, and also cyber security for the Smart Grid. So from this training, we received around 50% of youth participation, where I believe we can nurture our young talent into this technology. We introduce them to what is the current technology, which is as an enabler towards the energy transition. All right, so the second perspective is on the awareness. So since this project had been launched way back in September 2020, we had conducted many activities related with the Smart Grid project. So actually we derive our activities according to the profiling segmentation. So for youth, we had a few activities. For instance, Smart Grid, which were run 2021. We had Smart Grid talk show on the Smart Grid potential area of research. We also have Smart Grid Code War competition 2021 for our school students. So for awareness, we targeted higher education institution and also secondary and primary school student. So if you guys want to know more about our project and if you want to watch our recorded talk show, you can scan the QR code back there. All right, so I believe that's it from my presentation. And I do, think this Smart Grid project provide a platform for all of us, including youth, to empower our youth towards the energy transition. And we have a few other projects in our pipeline as well. Well, with that, I end my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Puan Shahida. Thank you. So at least we know what's happening with the Smart Grid project. And I mean, just a demonstration of one project, it shows how, if it's properly designed, you can bring in youth properly into the, the training component. And I think this realization should be made, public, and everybody should be adopting this kind of model, I think, as we move forward. Last but not least, we have Associate Professor Murshid Ashad, who is has one foot in the Faculty of College of Educational Studies in UPM, and he spends a couple of days in a week also at the Institute for Youth Research under the Ministry of Youth and Sports. Just to share with you before you start, I've got some figures here on the. Is my mic off? All right. There's always ghosts in the machine, they say. Murphy's Law is always at work. I think from the four presenters, what we've heard is that there are initiatives going on already in universities, and there are many public universities that I know of are very active in the sustainability domain. For instance, we have a representative from University of Malaya today. I know for a fact they have Cares program, who've been around for, I think, at least more than a decade, perhaps close to 2 decades, and they have produced many young leaders who are now, holding important positions in many organizations. So the question is, how do we scale up? How do we get all this sort of fragmented interest together? And I wonder if you would have some thoughts on what perhaps IRIS or perhaps the Ministry of Youth and Sports and also UPM have in mind on what's the formula moving forward. Over to you, Dr. Murshid.
Right. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh. And very good morning. Thank you very much, Dr. Hezri and all the panels. So thank you very much to all the participants, ISES 2022. I think it seems like a great honor to be here to share about what's next. I think it's a big task to me, right? But inshallah, I will try my best to share to all of you. And how do we link, the green awareness with the young development, especially in Malaysia. So can we do exercise this morning? How are you today? I didn't hear you. How are you today? Can we say great? How are you today? So when I say hi, I say hello, you say hi, okay? Okay? Hello? Hi. Hello, hello? Hi. Hello, hello, hello? Hi. Thank you very much. Okay, so this is in line, the conjunction of the topic. I think this is something good to discuss about this green awareness, right? And how do we link with the youth development in Malaysia? So today, I would like to share this because I'm also behalf of the University Putra Malaysia. So because our expertise on the youth development, at the same time also associate with the Institute for Youth Research Malaysia, IRIS. And we are going to discuss this in context of the Malaysian youth policy. Right? So what is the roles of Malaysian youth policy, especially to empower youth in the energy transition? So that's a bit interesting topic, and inshallah we try to relate this, okay? Okay, so I'm going to go for the next one, all right? So this is our agenda here for today. And of course, we have the discussion on how do we relate Malaysian youth policy with the Malaysian Youth Index, and how it relates to the implication and how do we discuss in the context of the energy transition. At a glance, I think this seems like conjunction what from Prof. Izhar said, all right, about the Malaysian youth. Thank you very much, Prof, because you're doing the Google, very nice professors in here get something information from the internet. But because this is something, of course we say this is something that very, not important, but it's important. How do we define the Malaysian youth? So Malaysian youth is between 15 to 30 years old. And of course, in terms of 15 to 30 years old, we can divide by the three main category. First is early youth, middle youth, and late youth. So what is the mean talking about the early youth? It's between 15 to 18 years old. And how about the middle youth? It's between 19 to 24 years old. And last but not least, late youth is between 24 to 30 years old. So meaning that when talking about the youth categorization in Malaysia, so meaning that we cannot blindly say that we try to do the approach to young people and we make it in one sentence. It must be inclusive. So that's why when talking about the youth age, it's meaning that how do we define it and how do we approach them? Because based on our research, the young people between 15 to 18 years old, they are searching for identity. So meaning that it's a good right time for us to develop them, to create awareness, to inculcate their sense of taking care about the green. So this is something good things, and of course, the process must be start from the school. I agree to all the parents that it must be start early, right? Okay, so we're talking about the Malaysian Youth Policy. So for your information, the Malaysian Youth Policy was established in 2015. So Alhamdulillah, I'm one of the team members that helping the ministry to develop this Malaysian Youth Policy. Because of what? Because we want to increase the involvement of young people to responsible citizen, talking about the national, regional, and international levels. So again, it relates to the green awareness. It relates to the energy transition, to talk about on how we need to care about our environment. And of course, talking about this is something that we need to highlight the potential. At the same time, we want to encourage, the young people to have this kind of opportunities. So we are glad we have the two panels here. It's a young age, right? I'm also young, tapi dah jadi beliau. Dia bukan belia, dia beliau. Okay? So meaning that this is talking about initiative for us to give their awareness, at the same time to encourage them to be part in our national building, especially talking about the green awareness. So at a glance, we look on this is a Malaysian youth character. We identified that Malaysian, they has a potential. They are not without guidance. That's why we need to encourage them. Belia bukan tidak berpotensi. They are not with the potential, but we are lack of the guidance. So that's why we need to start from the family. That's why in context of we create the awareness, what's next, Dr. Hezri? We need to start from the family. Because this is how do we encouraging them to think about the environment. And of course, in the school, higher institution, talking about the educational institution, talking about the community, talking about the institutional. So this is something that we need to have that. And of course, the process must be encouraging, and this is a synergy process between the government, public sector, NGO, and NGI. So what's the meaning of NGI? It's a non-government individual, because we need to take care about it, because this is important to ensure that our young people are ready to make the change. So on top of that, based on this kind of our research, we found that they have 8 target groups for the Malaysian youth. Meaning that while we focus on the youth development, we're talking about the green awareness, we're talking about the energy transition, it must be worked according to this category. We need to know that in the first age, we're looking on the youth at school. So of course, the approach to the youth at school is different with the youth at higher education. It's different. So why not we try to encourage this concept of the 8 youth target group, then we start to implement and formulate the program related with the youth green awareness. We're talking about the career youth. Of course, they are different. They talk about money, they talk about income, they're talking about generation. So this something is different. We're talking about the youth at large. We're talking about international Malaysian youth. Maybe they have the experience working abroad. And of course, they are also having the experience studying overseas. So of course, we need them to bring. We don't want to talk about brain, meaning that they're talking about the brain drainage, right? We want to make them involved in the process. And of course, we're talking about the marginalized and minority youth. We're talking about Aboriginal, orang asli, we're talking about single mother, we talk about OKU, okay? disabled people. So this is talking about how do we encourage them, and of course, maybe in the process of the awareness, we need also to involve with the youth at risk behavior. Okay, we know that there are many issues nowadays. So meaning that how do we encourage them together with us, okay, in terms of the green awareness. Based on our research, according to the Malaysian Youth Index 2021, this is a new, I think this need to back, alright. Kenapa dia jadi macam ni, alright. Okay, this is based on the Malaysian Youth Index. We're talking about this. We also having the research on about the youth awareness, especially about green, talking about the environment. So it's under the domain values and identity, which is dedicated talking about the sensitivity towards environment sustainability. Interestingly, when we get from the findings, it's a moderate range. We're talking about is 68.5 domain score index. So meaning that we need to do lots of things in help our young people to know about the environment. So based on our study, we go and get some information from the qualitative research to understand why they are so a bit, skeptical about the environment. First, their perception towards the government, their perception towards the policy, to what extent that the policy protect the environment. So meaning that the young people, they have something like a stigma. So to what extent that the enforcement, to what extent talking about the encouragement to help the green will be in the line of the process of development and in line with the process of the national agenda. So meaning that the young people are skeptical with that. Of course, how can we expect them to talk about the environment? Because at the glance, they start to think about the stigma about the green awareness in Malaysia. So that's why the score is low, it's a moderate, and of course we try to help. And of course the process of the green awareness must be start, okay, dramatically, okay, from now. This must be, okay, this must be fit with the current situation. According to this, why green awareness is important? So I hope that this is not you yourself, right? We don't want to wait until this age, all right? Inshallah, we try our best to create the awareness for this. So this is our agenda. How do we relate with this Malaysian youth policy? So for your information, the output from the Malaysian youth policy, we want to encouraging the positive youth development. So in terms of positive youth development, we need these two assets must be developed first. First is individual asset, which is talking about your knowledge, skills, attitude. And the second one is external. We're talking about ecological asset, which is support from the environment, support from the community. So that's why at the end we develop the 8C, and one of that is called considerate. So meaning that how do we encouraging the youth awareness in considerate things. So that's why we're talking about the environmental awareness development process among youth. We need to have the strategy. If we want to success, we need to have a plan. If we don't have a plan, we are planned to fail. So that's why we need to have the time frame. We need to have some budget allocation suitable for the process. We must have the supervision. And of course, we're talking about the physical input. And again, this process must be evaluated. Okay? And this is called performance appraisal. It's a performance review. We need to do every time because we want to encourage the process this in line with the agenda, the national agenda. That's why we're talking about the change here. Okay? The role of the young people, you need to be a change agent. Okay? I think I agree with Elisa's. We're talking about Malaysian youth supposed to be an agent of change. This is very, very important. And Malaysian youth also need to be in part of the process helper. Okay? And again, this is something that youth should be a resource linker. And again, it must be a problem solver to solve the problem. So that's why this process must have the guidance from the young people and also from the perspective of adults. So adults will be a mentor. Adults will be a guided person to help this process. That's why we need to encourage the universities, industries, community to be in the process of the youth development agenda in terms of the green sustainability. So this is a conclusion. It's a collaborative ecosystem to empower youth in the energy transition. So again, it relates to presentation by the Prof. Hazri just now, talking about the university, how the university linkage with the community, industry and ministry. We will need to work together We don't want it to make it in silo. So we need to work together so that this is synergy in helping our young people, our young generation to create the awareness, okay, in the future. And inshallah, we hope that for the next, after this, we want to have a green environment in Malaysia. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh.
Salam. Thank you very much, Associate Professor Dr. Mushid Ashad, for that sharing. I think what is important from your presentation is you have disaggregated the different categories of youth requiring different interventions. And it's very useful to also know about the index of youth studies, and you have a categories or a parameter on environment, or environmental awareness, green awareness. It's very important to understand that as well. And just to add to that conversation by highlighting this study, National Youth Climate Change Survey, which was done in 2020, November 2020, which found that 92% of young people think that climate change is a crisis in Malaysia, and they exhibited a very high level of concern. And 9 in 10 Malaysian youth have experienced environment and climate-related effects in the last 3 years. So it's not hypothetical. They've experienced it, and they're very concerned about it. The question is now, after listening to all the 5 panelists with their excellent sharing and presentation, what do we do next? And I think what we should focus on this acronym TEAM. TEAM, T-E-A-M, which stands for training, education, awareness, and mobilization. And I think we don't have much time. We have about 17 minutes before Karen is already standing there. Karen, if you can bear with us for a few more minutes. If we can just focus on what's next. One question is there enough interest among youth in this area? Of course, we get so fascinated, so encouraged by listening to Ikram, to Elisa, but is this prevalent out there? Is this a common thing out there? Prof. Izam, what do you think? Are youth interested in this topic?
Okay. I think that's a very good question because I believe at the university level, I'm sure there are also some university lecturers here as well. You probably noticed that the youth today has a slight divergent interest towards technology. For the past few years, I think this is also happening globally. We have produced a lot of very good students from secondary schools, right? But by the end of the day, when they want to choose what will be their next path of study, it would be non-technical. Now, even though, yes, we empower the youth to actually decide what they want, but from the bigger picture, this is something that we need to think hard. Because in order for us to drive energy transition per se, one element that is also very important is the drivers of technology. And if we lose the drivers in the future, nobody's going to drive it. How do we make energy transition a reality? So obviously, this is a big challenge, not just in Malaysia and also around the world. How do we put technical topics or technical competency in a different light? That's why I believe the government has looked into technical vocational approach, TVET, to look into basic skills in order for them to be able to survive out there. And if you look at the trends nowadays, right after SPM, some of our young youth, some of them probably decide that I don't want to go to university, I would rather work. But based on that angle, maybe we can look into how do we enrich them with the right technical skills for them to play that part, to play that role towards realizing this energy transition. So I leave it at that first.
Thank you, Prof. Zam. And also begs the question whether we are doing the right thing when it comes to primary and secondary education. Those who were perhaps born before 1980s perhaps realize that there's always, in education, the appreciation of time and space is very important. Time meaning that history is very important in our understanding of the world. And similarly, geography, understanding of space is very important. But I don't know what is the latest in our education system or syllabus now, Dr. Mushid. But if I'm not mistaken, geography is not a compulsory subject matter anymore in secondary school. And you pointed to the fact that in secondary school, I mean, around that age, people are, I mean, youth are curious about the world, and yet they're not, given enough, So just your comment on that. Are we doing enough on that?
So thank you very much, Moderator Dr. Hezri. Okay, this is something good things that talking about the education, because we want to create the awareness. Of course, the education must be fit. I agree with that. That's why the training, education should be in line with the national agenda. So based on my observation and based on the research, we found that, again, the process of creating the awareness, 95% starts from the education. And the rest is including with the training. We're talking about the process, how do they implement it. And of course, this element of the exposure, okay, in the process. So agree with that, Dr. Hezri. We need to inculcate the meaning that the curriculum, the syllabus in line with the green awareness. Of course, we're talking about mathematics. We talk about the English subject, for and so forth, so on and so forth. So we need to meaning that embed, okay, the green meaning that awareness. How do we create the education in terms of the subject? Let's say, for example, we have the English subject. So why not we encourage the teachers? We can have the essays, we can have the poem related with the awareness, green awareness. Okay, let's say, for example, for mathematics, we can have the questions in line with that. So meaning that this is something on how do we strengthen, okay, the curriculum towards the green sustainability. Number two, we're talking about the activities. The curriculum activities must be fit with it. And again, the curriculum is just not in the classroom, but must be extended into the activities, the core curricular activities with the students. So that's why the awareness, the activities, let's say, for example, the forum, symposium, town hall, quiz, right, or activities, they must be, create in any time, every day. And of course, it must be fit with the activities in the school. Number three, it's talking about the community. To what extent that community, they have this program. That's why we're talking about the process of creating the awareness. We need just not to go on the formal education, but we try to go for the non-formal education, which is the community program, community awareness, okay, program bringing that, talking about the activities in the community. To what extent that we encourage our young people to know about the green. So this is something that the three components will be included with the team concept. You're talking about the training, education, awareness, and also mobilization. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for that thought. I think before we collect questions from you guys from the floor, I'd just like to ask your opinion, particularly Alisa and Ikram, and also perhaps Puan Shahida as well, on the platform needed to get this conversation going in a more structured manner. This is, we appreciate the opportunity given by the organizer to have this session, but what's next? How do we get everyone together? There are more than 20 public universities and many more private universities, and there's also community colleges. There must be my sense is that there must be a platform for this conversation to continue to give birth to concrete actions on the ground, because what matters is what happens next, right? On the ground, action. We all gathered here, I think we are not converting to the unconverted. We know, like, I think one gentleman yesterday spoke about the question is now money, because we all know that we are convinced that energy transition is necessary, but what do we do? How do we get money? How do we get the different groups together? Alisa, Ikram, maybe Alisa first.
Sure. Thank you, Dr. Hezri, for the question. I guess if there is a need for a platform for us to collaborate, for youth to collaborate, for people like me and Ikram to collaborate together with the generation today as mentors, I think that is something really important. We need that platform. And as I mentioned just now, that there are, like, when you talk about sustainability, it's an industry on its own. You need people within the industry itself. But then it does not just stop there. You need people who are innovators, you need people who are creators, you need engineers, you need people from the STEM industry, because inputs like this can basically make, many raw ideas can be integrated into a whole system. And I feel that's where the need for this form of collaboration, or basically this platform, it has to come into place, because one idea does not make up an entire system. You need multiple ideas. You need a lot of ideas, because a lot of ideas basically makes up a whole system, a whole working system that we can put in place and hopefully create a better future.
Thank you, Alisa. Ikram?
I think first things first, I'll go on with two questions at the same time, but my answer is just one. So I think first things first, it's important for us to move on from the concept that youth are the leaders of the future. I think that's quite patronizing. It has good intentions, but it results in a paradoxical manner in which we will continue in the same way that we are doing it today. If you say youth are the future, when is, or youth are the leaders of tomorrow, when is tomorrow? Is it 20 years later? Is it 30 years later? We want youth for their ideas, for their drive and passion. But when you give them the position to succeed, to put that drive and passion into place, it's already too late and they're no longer youth. The drive and the passion is no longer there. So that's my biggest concern. I think if we want to put youth in a position to succeed and make difference in this world, it has to start with now. Youth are the leaders of today, not tomorrow. I think that's first thing first. We have to renew the concept. Secondly, when we talk about the interests of youth and making a platform, I think the youth are already leaning towards a sustainable future. You look at the statistics, it shows that the majority of youth, if not all, are already leaning towards that perspective. It's just about that little push to get them interested, to get deeper interest in the passion into the subject matter. So first things first, we must garner support and establish more interest because the lean is already there. There's that lean. Secondly, when we talk about getting them into the sustainable movement, we have to put them in a position to succeed. For example, we have to move on from the previous concepts of they are the leaders of tomorrow. If they are capable, if they are willing, then let's put them at the position to succeed. I think that's number two. And when we talk about the positions to succeed, it contains several elements. It can contain the element of making a platform where everyone can collaborate between universities. In my personal experience, this is very anecdotal. When we engaged the government, when my university engaged the government, they were quite surprised. Why? Because they didn't initiate that interaction. It's us who initiated it. So when we talk about it that way, was I the leader or was the latter person, the government, the leader of that interaction? It was the youth who led that interaction. So the youth was the leader, or myself in that case, was the leader in that interaction. So I believe that we are capable, and if we are really put into position to succeed, then we can really make a difference.
Thank you, Ikram, for bringing that point out that do not patronize youth. Get them now when the future is not tomorrow, future is today. It started yesterday. And what is also more important to emphasize is that some of these actions are, like I said, they are fragmented, and there are initiatives going around. But I think we need a little bit of help that push, because if there is one index, the power distance index, and Malaysia is #1 in the world. That means that the hierarchy between those who do not have power and those who are in powerful positions are very, very far. I'm short of saying this is a very feudalistic society, and we have to address this if we are very serious about energy transition and sustainability, because this energy that I have on my left side, hand side, also right hand side, are real, So we need to really push this forward, help this push to happen.
Dr. Hezri, I'm sorry, we're running out of time, so we need to get straight to a Q&A, otherwise we'll have no time for questions.
That's what I'm going to do now, actually, to invite a couple of questions at least from the floor, otherwise we know.
Yeah, at least one question for now. We have one question, the gentleman over there. Can we get a microphone? I saw that one first.
Maybe you can collect these three questions.
If you can keep the answers very short if possible, so we can get the second question in. One there, and then
also
one there.
at the back.
Yes.
Yep. So,
Two questions, and if you can keep the answers as short as possible, please.
Yeah, maybe we can get the gentleman on my right-hand side first, please. Please introduce yourself and please be succinct. Thank you. Is there a microphone for him? Please. Microphone is on the way.
Okay. Is my voice? Oh, okay. So I'm Mohammed Al-Tayyib from UNITEN, College of Graduate Studies. I have, is it possible to ask two panelists or only one question?
Maybe we can, combine that question.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I'll get them to address.
Okay, so the first question was for Mr. Ikram. As you said, the youth future starts from now. So what kind of awarenesses that you have done in your experience? And also, did you collaborate with any NGOs like UN or UNFPA or something? This is the first question for you. The second question is for Dr. Eleanor. As you said that there is a STEM box for training and for something like capacity building. So is it implemented here in Malaysia, and is there a city or is in urban or rural areas? This is my two questions. Thank you.
Thank you for those two questions. One for Ikram, one for Elisa. But before that, let's get.
Can we get a microphone to the
Gentleman
gentleman
in red shirt? Yeah.
in red? Yes.
Oh, sorry.
I think for the, in the interest of time, if you could just only answer that one question from that gentleman, because we're really running short of time, and
That's
I know
right.
that
Yep.
the answer might take more than 30 seconds. So I'm very sorry to the gentleman that would just answer the first question.
This one.
And
Hi, good afternoon, good morning. My name is Hazirim, and I'm from the Malaysia Green Foundation.
Well, we can't really hear. If you can take off your
Hello? Okay, sorry.
mask for a while.
So, I'm from the SEDA Malaysia, an agency under Ministry of Energy and Natural Resources. Just to add on Professor Murshid, we have done a curriculum for green technology for Form 5, for Form 4 and Form 5 that covers about 5 subjects of science, biology, green technology, basic sustainability, and biology, and also chemistry. So we have covered that green technology, but what is the main point right now is what have we done the best to change our behavior of our future and for our young leaders? Because as we know now, even we are using plastic bottles at the moment, and we are talking about to transform our youth generation. So I would like to throw this question to the panel. What we have done our best to change the behavior of our current and future generation. Thank you.
Thank you. And then we have gentlemen in
I'm
at the
sorry,
back.
Dr. Hezri, we really have no time, so we can only take those two questions. I'm very sorry, sir. Otherwise, we're going to be another half an hour here, and I think people will not want to stay so long for another half an hour. So if you can just address the first two questions, and then if we really can, maybe off stage, we can address the gentleman's other question later on.
Yeah,
So for now, if we can address the first question.
I can't argue with the MC.
I'm so sorry for that.
Yes, Elisa,
Yeah.
you want to start first?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. All right, so regarding STEMbox, STEMbox is actually open to everybody. It's open not to just Malaysians. You can be a foreigner and also come to STEMbox. And if you are someone who is knowledgeable about sustainable STEM programs, then you are welcome to join us as a trainer. You are welcome to join us and share your knowledge with these children, with these underprivileged children. Because the entire purpose of STEMbox is to actually change the stigma among underprivileged children who do not want to pursue tertiary education. They usually want to stop after high school and they just want to start working. And we want to change that mindset. We want them to go to university and basically create a better future for them and also for their families and their society. So I guess to keep it short, that's all.
Thank you, Elisa.
Thank you so much for keeping it concise. Was there another answer?
Dr. Murshid, should I go next?
Okay, thank you very much for the good question. I think how do we bring the change behavior? First is talking about how do we encouraging youth adult partnership. So meaning that the young people, they need encouragement from the youth, from the young people, right? So young people, it can be family, parents, can be community, teachers, schools, and also lecturers in university. So meaning that the encouragement of the young people learn through the young youth, through the adults, is talking about the youth adult partnership. Because of what? Because the young people, they have idealistic, they have lots of idea. However, the adults, they have the wisdom. So, of course, how do we combine the idealistic and wisdom to bring the change, especially on the green awareness, all right? So, meaning that we need to encouraging the youth-adult partnership, okay, in terms of how to change the behavioral. That's a short, simple, and sweet comments. Back to Dr. Hezri.
Thank you, Murshid. Ikram, you want to add to that? Shortly.
Yeah, I'll add to that matter. I think I'll relate to the original concept. When, for example, using plastic bottles is a traditional concept. We've been doing it for conference for a long time. So it's an old idea. So if you let youth be at the fray and lead things like a conference and have new ideas. I believe that the willingness and the bravery to not use plastic bottles is a radical idea actually, especially in a conference where everything must be convenient, must be easy, but at the sake of the environment. So you need the radicalism of youth, the bravery to make decisions that can cause discomfort to others, but it's actually good for the environment. So that's the answer for me.
Thank you, Ikram, and thank you, Karen, for that
Excellent answer.
injury
Thank
time.
you very
that you shared
much.
with us.
Thank you to our panelists. Thank you to Dr. Hezri. On behalf of SEDA, University Tenaga Nasional, and the Institute of Energy Policy and Research, thank you very much again to our guest speakers for their valuable insights and for that very interesting discussion. My apologies for cutting short some of the questions, but I'm sure we all want to be someplace on time. So before we proceed, let's present each of our guest speakers with a token of our gratitude for being here today. To present the mementos, I'd like to invite TS Dr. Siti Indati Mustafa, Director at the Institute of Energy Policy and Research, to come forward, please, to present the mementos. Thank you. Dr. Siti will present to Dr. Hezri first. Thank you, Dr. Hezri, for moderating the session. And next to Ekram. Thank you, Ekram. And next to Eleanor. Thank you, Eleanor. Next lady, Nur Shahida. Prof. Dr. Isham. Thank you very much. And last but not least, thank you very much to Prof. Madhya. Thank you. And we'll have a group photo after this. Thank you very much to our guest speakers once again for your contributions. And thank you, Dr. Siti, as well, for making the presentation. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you all very much for attending. Before you leave this hall, we would really appreciate if you could share your valuable feedback. It really means a lot, and it will really help us towards the organization for the next workshops as well. To access the survey form, just scan the QR code that you see right now on the LED screen. This will just take you a few minutes to complete the survey. Thank you in advance for completing the survey. We will reconvene after the lunch break. The last two deep dive workshops will begin at 1:30 p.m. If you're attending any of those, please make sure you're in the relevant hall 5 minutes earlier. The topic in this hall will be on carbon capture storage, CCS. So please come back by 1:30 for that topic. In the meantime, thank you again for filling out the survey form before you leave the hall, and enjoy your lunch break.